There was a woman who was speaking live to me during the group discussion. And she was asking questions about her situation. I was telling her that she needs to cut off the toxic people in her life. And she posed the question, well, what if that means I would be alone? One of the first steps to healing trauma, which is the most common question asked, how do I heal from my trauma? One of the first steps is to cut off toxic persons. To the extent that you cut toxic people off, cut them out, and cut them back is the extent to which you will be able to heal quickly. And your healing will be accelerated because you're creating a calm, peaceful environment. The toxic people in your life are anti-therapists. They are the anti-therapists. They're the anti-healers. So they are making you worse. I hope that that's clear. I don't know how to make it more clear. You're trying to get better. They're trying to make you worse. So when you're in your healing process, you're starting to grow, they will mock you. They will tell you that your healing is not working for you. Anytime you make a mistake or mess up or you get upset, they will actively work against your healing. They may try to sabotage you from going to your meetings, from doing your sessions. They will mock the person who's your trauma specialist, whether that's me or anyone else. No one is immune. They will do anything they can to bring you down. They are your anti-therapists. Okay, these are your narcissists, your abusive persons in your life. So you have to cut them out. But then poses the question, well, if I cut everyone out, doesn't that mean that I might end up alone? How will I cope? What will I do then? I wanted to address this in a full part so that we can get over this issue, because at the very root of all of our problems as trauma survivors is the fear of being alone. The reason we have toxic people in our lives is because we're afraid of being alone. You understand that? That's the reason you have so many toxic people in your life. That's the reason you have any toxic people. For some people, it's moving out of the house. So they would have to move out of their mother or their father's house. They don't want to do that, but their mother and their father are toxic. Their mother and their father are anti-therapists. They are hurting you. They are anti-healing. If you want to heal, you have to move out, but they're afraid to move out because they're afraid of being alone, of doing it on their own. For others, it's getting rid of their toxic mate. They got a boyfriend, a girlfriend, they might be living with this person. It's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, you have to get rid of that person. You got to get rid of the toxicity, the contaminant. Toxic is poison. But they're afraid of being alone. Remember, the reason this toxic person is in your life is because you were always afraid of being alone. That's why you didn't move out of your parents' house. Or if you did, that's why you immediately get moved in with this person, or you get married really fast, or you get in a deep relationship really fast, and you go from relationship to relationship to relationship because you are codependent. And basically the synonym to codependency is the fear of loneliness. The fear of loneliness is the very definition of loneliness itself. What creates actual loneliness is not being around people. It is the fear that not being around people is somehow going to be detrimental, debilitating, frightening. So we have to switch the way we're thinking about this. We got to heal our mindset around this idea of being alone. Do you find this with yourself? If you're anything like me, there was only one thing I didn't want to do, and that was be alone. So at 19, 20 years old, I already had plans to get married. By 21, I was in a marriage because I didn't want to be alone. So I spent zero time being single. And how did that work out? Well, found myself married to a psychopath. When we pump the brakes a little bit, we have an opportunity to write a better future for ourselves. When we're operating out of the desperation for connection or the desperation to have someone in our lives, what can happen to us? Isn't it true that now you're in scarcity mindset? That's scarcity thinking. Oh my God, I have no one, I'll be alone. And so with that desperation comes you doing something that you'll later regret. But if we can access abundance mindset, we can get out of the fear that we would ever have to be by ourselves, then this will allow us to wait until we have a very good option of a mate or a friend or whoever it is that we're looking to fill this so-called void with. And then we don't regret our decision as much. Then we have less toxic relationships. We cannot allow the fear of loneliness to hold us back from getting rid of toxic people, because the toxic people are holding us back from healing our fear of loneliness. The toxic people are holding us back from healing our codependency. So if you don't want to be codependent, that is believing that your purpose in life is another human. That's codependency. Believing your whole purpose in life is to focus on helping another person, either financially or otherwise. If you want to heal this, you have to let go of the fears, the fear of being alone. So let's address what's really happening here with our fear of loneliness. And to do that, we'll acknowledge that being with people has its benefits. In fact, as a society, we tend to group our humans together, not just in families, but just as a city. As nations, most all the people in any given nation live all in one area. There's a reason for this. People being around you means you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So this means that you don't have to worry about figuring out how you're going to make a house for yourself because someone's already built houses. You don't have to figure out who's going to butcher your meat or who's going to make your clothes, right? We have benefits of other people. There are benefits to other people. But we can start to have magical thinking about the importance of these other people in our lives. And we can get to the point where we start to believe that a connection with a big, strong man will complete me. Or if I could just have a beautiful woman on my arm, then I'll truly be complete. Then I'll be whole. Then I'll prove my worth, my value. But can you see the extreme thinking there? You might relate to it, but this is magical thinking. This idea that the presence of another human completes us. It implies that us on our own or by ourselves is not complete. But that's not really true, is it? Some of us may feel like being alone means that there's something wrong with us. We feel like if we're alone, then we look like there's something wrong with us, or maybe there really is something wrong with us. And that's why no one wants to be with us, right? Some people are afraid of not having the support of others. Well, if I'm alone and cut everyone out, then I'm not going to have anyone's support. I'm going to feel disconnected. Some people are afraid of the social stigma of how they'll look, not having a guy or a gal. They don't want to show up to family dinners and events without another person validating their existence. Some of us are concerned about how we're going to make decisions on our own, do practical things on our own. The woman that we were talking to on that phone call, she said, well, but I'm disabled. So how could I be alone if I'm disabled? Some people have FOMO, just the fear of missing out. So they're afraid if they're not by their family, they're not going to see what's going on. If they don't have a group of friends or they're not with their group of friends, they're not going to be in the know. They're going to miss out on all the great memories and the amazing things that happen with a group. Some people have negative self-perception. So society often promotes the notion that being in a relationship or having a partner signifies success or attractiveness. And so they feel like if I don't have a partner, then that makes me inadequate or makes me look inadequate. And I'll be perceived as a failure, or I'll be perceived as unattractive or unlovable. Some people just worry about the general future, like, well, if I'm alone, what if something happens to me? What if I slip and fall in the shower or something and I'm by myself? Then what? I can't be alone. Or some people feel like they're going to lose their support system. So their network of friends would disappear. They won't have the financial support of their mom and dad. But when you take all these reasons, and you may relate to some, you may feel the same way about some of these things, these fears of being alone, are any of them a good excuse to allow someone to abuse you? Are any of those reasons a good excuse to remain in an abusive relationship? The answer is no, by the way. Your responsibility on this earth is not to connect with others. That's a misconception. It's not your primary responsibility. Your responsibility on this earth is to care for yourself first. It's just a basic, universal, given responsibility that no one knew they needed to explain to us, but because we've lost ourselves as trauma survivors and we grew up in these emotionally deprived environments, we lost sight of something very basic and very simple. So the basic, simple truth is that first, primarily, you have to care for yourself. Now, that might sound selfish to some of us who grew up in religious and spiritual systems, but if you go to the concept of loving the neighbor, the concept is that you love the neighbor as you love yourself. So therefore, you cannot love the neighbor if you don't love yourself, because the basis of loving the other person is the love of the self. So it is not anti-Christian or non-spiritual to learn to care for the self. It's quite the contrary. It is a necessity. The universe has laid upon you this responsibility. All of us on the outside are expecting you to care for you. It's not our job. You are not our job. Now, of course, society's got programs and we got things where we're going to look out for one another, but primarily you've got the responsibility of caring for yourself, which means you've got the responsibility of caring for your mental and emotional health, which means your decision to stay in an abusive relationship is detrimental and going against your fundamental duty. Your decision to stay in an abusive relationship is a detrimental decision, and you are violating your duty and causing yourself to become a bigger burden to us as society. Because now when you lose your mental faculties or become unstable emotionally, we have to step up and care for you because you didn't care for yourself. And what was it you needed to do? Get out of the abusive relationship. That's your responsibility. When you end up mangled and bloody because you've got somebody physically beating on you, but this is the person that you chose to keep going back to, despite the fact that you know that they are violent and that they're psychopathic or sociopathic and they don't care about other humans. You knew that, but you kept going back to this relationship. You see, you become now our burden. Now we have to care for your body. Now we have to care for your health because you couldn't do it. So let's get real. Let's get serious about our responsibility. It's our job to care for ourselves. It means we're going to have to cut some people out. And if that means that you're going to have to be alone because you either got narcissists and flying monkeys around you, then so be it. It will be the best thing that ever happens to you. So let's address some of the concerns, right? There's 3 things you need to heal from the trauma. You need to change the beliefs, you need to change the bias, and you need to change the behaviors. Those are your 3 B's to healing. So when it comes to loneliness, we need to change our belief around loneliness. Our bias is our way of thinking, and then our behavior around this idea of codependency and loneliness. right? So if we have this idea, well, if I'm alone, something's wrong with me. This is a belief. This is a way of thinking. How do we change that? Well, let's examine the truth of the matter. Isn't it true that being alone is the default state of the human being? You have to try to be around people. To be alone is the default state of the human. You're alone all the time, no matter where you go, what you're doing, you're always alone. So is it really bad to be alone? No. It's good to be alone sometimes, isn't it? It's good to be alone sometimes. Being alone allows us to focus on our personal needs, to focus on our purpose. Being alone is good sometimes. Put that in your notes. This is the new updated belief. If you have the fear of loneliness because being alone is associated with isolation and lacking companionship and support, ask yourself, have I ever really given it a try? Or were you like I was, where you wouldn't even try it? You wouldn't even give yourself a time, a couple years of just not being in a relationship to see if you really die, if it's that bad, if you shrivel up due to embarrassment. You may find that some of your most pleasant and peaceful moments can come while you're by yourself. The fear of alone is what keeps me in bad relationships. Put that in your notes. That's the new belief. The fear of being alone is what causes all the problems in my life. These kids that are terrorizing me, these are a result because I was afraid to be alone. That husband that's beating me, that's a result of me being afraid of being alone. That wife out there that's slandering me, that's a result of me being afraid to be alone. Some of my biggest problems in life are a result of me being afraid to just be alone. So we're going to change the belief. That's the new belief. Is that actually being alone is better than wishing you were. Let's look at the parable of the fishermen. Two men are in the same boat. They're in a contest. It's a fishing contest. As the contest rules go, the person that brings back the biggest fish is the winner of the contest. And so the two men have their respective fishing poles and their lines are in the water and they're waiting. The scared man says, "Oh man, what if we don't find anything? What if we go back and we don't have anything?" The confident man, his companion in the boat, says, "Well, I didn't come here with anything. So if I don't find anything, I should be fine because I'm fine right now." The scared man says, "Well, what if we go back with nothing? They didn't say what happens if we both go back with nothing." The confident man says, "Well, I guess we'll find out." And as they're waiting there, they both get a tug on their fishing line. And so they roll in what they've caught. They must have run into a school of fish, and both of them caught a very small fish. The confident man takes the small fish, tosses it back in the water, rebaits his line, and puts his line back in the water. The scared man says, "You just threw your fish back? Why did you throw your fish back? What if you don't catch another fish?" And the scared man takes his fish and he puts it in his cooler. "Well, I'm bringing this one back. I'm not gonna risk it. I'm not gonna try to catch another fish." The confident man says, "Well, that's your choice, but that was a small fish and I want to win." And the scared man says, "Well, I want to win too, but I don't want to go back with no fish. I don't know what's going to happen if we go back with no fish." And so the scared man sits there with his fishing pole in the boat and his very small fish. And the confident man sits there with his fishing line in the water, and he waits, and he waits, and he waits, while the scared man goes on and on talking about what's going to happen if we go back with no fish. And then eventually, the scared man gets a tug on his line, and it's a big one. And as he struggles to reel it in, or the confident man gets a tug on his line, and as he reels it in, it is a great big fish. The confident man puts his big fish into his cooler, puts his line in the boat, and they head back to shore. The confident man has won this contest. But can you relate to either of these characters? when it comes to the concept of companionship and loneliness, is it so that you perform more like the scared man, that you think more like the scared man, constantly afraid, that you need to jump on your first opportunity for companionship, and as a result, you don't win in the end? Because that's what the scared man did. He didn't want to risk not having a fish, and so he all but guaranteed his own failure. But the confident man took his time and he waited. And as a result, he was able to win and get what he really wanted. But it took patience. That is the patience that we must have as healed individuals. The ability to wait. So don't date, vet. Have your list and understand what you're looking for in a mate. And as these individuals start to come up one by one, these sharks start swirling around trying to be the next one to get a piece of your meat. You just analyze each one individually and toss them back. If it's not the big fish you're looking for, toss them back. Some have the belief that their social stigma will be affected if they don't have someone. So if you're like that, and you're like, well, I don't want to seem like I'm on the outside or be judged. Here's the new belief. I don't care what these other people think of me. I don't care what other people may think of me by being single or being alone or living alone or being on my own. I don't care. I'm the one who has to live with my decisions. They don't have to live with my decisions. The true reality, and I'll let you in on a secret, is that all these people who seem to have friends and seem to have their family and seem to have relationships, many of them are not happy. Many of them are scared. They're so afraid of losing the people around them that they are suffering silently, and they betray themselves on a daily basis. And they really feel like they've lost themselves. So you're looking at them coming into the restaurant that you're sitting alone at, and it's a whole group of ladies, and they're all wearing blue jeans and white tops. And you go, man, that is so cool. I wish I could be in a whole group of friends and we're all dressed exactly the same. And you'll notice most groups of friends do dress exactly the same, because something happens to us when we're around people. Conformity, the pressure to conform, takes over, and individuality starts to take a back seat, which means your personal opinions, your personal feelings begin to take a back seat very naturally. And that can actually be detrimental to your emotional well-being if you're not careful. So it's not bad to have friends, but it's not the end-all be-all of life to have a group of friends. Some of us just don't get a group of friends, and that's okay. Some of us don't get a group of friends, and that's okay. For many of us, we'll have one or two or three or four, but it'll take time. And you're thinking that these connections are so solid and so deep, but you're just projecting that on these people that you see. The reality is most people are spending their weekends and weeknights alone at home. That's the reality. The statistical reality is that most people are not out with their friends on Friday and Saturday night. That is your perception that you're projecting. If you have FOMO, fear of missing out, then you got to change your way of thinking. A proper way of viewing what everyone else is doing is as none of your business, because you're not there. So it really has nothing to do with you. What you should fear missing out on is your purpose. What you should fear missing out on is reaching your potential. And I'm sorry, but you can't reach your purpose while you're running around with your groups of friends and hanging out with your family. It's holding you back. That's if you have healthy friends and family. It holds you back from accomplishing your purpose. If you have a healthy group of friends, you still have to limit your time. If you want to be healthy and accomplish anything in this lifetime, you got to limit your time with your friends. You can't be out every weekend with them. You can't go everywhere with them. That's if you have a good group. Solitude is a good thing, not a bad thing. Let's change our perspective. Let's write it down. What we should fear missing out on is achieving our goals. What FOMO comes from is elevating the group above the self. You're elevating others above you. So therefore, whatever they're experiencing, if they're having fun, that means more than you if you're experiencing something good alone. So you're just elevating others above yourself. It's equal. Everyone's equal. So yeah, you guys had a great time. Good. Oh, wow. You went to a bluff and then there was fireworks over the city. And it was really great. I'm so happy for you. That's great. I had a great time too at home working on the book that I've been wanting to write, because I certainly can't write that while I'm running around with you guys in blue jeans and white tops. Some people fear that if they're alone, then that will means they'll have to rely solely on themselves for emotional support, decision-making, practical things. Maybe they're disabled. How do we change our thinking around this? Well, a healthy belief is there is no better gift I can give myself than my own independence. The gift of independence. Being dependent, being too dependent, is ultimately not attractive and not my goal in life. Many of us are gaslit into thinking we're sicker and more disabled than we really are. Narcissists love to tell you about how your ADHD holds you back and you're bipolar and you're borderline and you got to go to the doctor and your medications are going to hold you back and that you're autistic. They love telling you that you're autistic. The reality is we actually need to get away from people in order to find our own identity, to develop our own identity. We need to get away from people. And then when you're away from them, then you can work on your skills, your abilities, and you can have something really beautiful to bring back when you are connecting with others. So let's seek a balance in our life. Some connection with other people, but most of the time, seek the solitude. Some people fear that they'll be viewed as a failure or inadequate, or they have low self-esteem. So they feel like having a person will make them seem adequate. But one time I was out on the beach with a bunch of people in Los Angeles, and this beautiful specimen of a man just walks, he starts walking up on the beach. He's walking his dog. He had his shirt off. He looked like he came out of the house with his shirt off. And he had a body like it would be a waste if he ever wore a shirt. I mean, he was a beautiful man. And all of us stopped what we were doing and we all stared at this beautiful man. And you know what nobody thought? Nobody thought he's inadequate because he doesn't have a woman next to him. Nobody thought that. The reality is, if you spend time caring for yourself, you're going to radiate excellence, beauty, love. You're going to show yourself as a complete person. And when you show up as a complete person, other people aren't going to view you as inadequate or failure. They're going to look up to you. So all the time you spend simping over this great boyfriend or this girlfriend, it's not allowing you to grow into everything that you could be. We don't admire the couples that are just codependent. We admire the couples that are power couples, as we call them, because they're accomplishing their purpose. They care about more than just each other. We admire the couples that are out either individually doing amazing things with their life and their potential, or together they're working on something and they're doing amazing things with their life and potential. So it all comes down with your ability to focus on your purpose. That's a skill you develop now while you're alone. Otherwise, you're going to lose it. You're going to be totally lost by the time you find someone, if you find someone, and then they got you lost. You're, oh, what are you into? Boats? Okay, I'll be into that. You're going to lose yourself if you don't, if you never develop yourself in the first place. Some people are worried, of course, about the financial concerns. but you should not prioritize your finances over your mental, emotional health. Some people are worried about, well, what if I fall in the shower or something happens to me? Well, you can have a house full of people and you can still fall in the shower. And it's a possibility that nobody even knows that happened to you, and you could still be sitting there knocked unconscious in the shower. Having a house full of people doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're saved as a result of having a house full of people. There are some circumstances where it can help, but there are many circumstances that are happenstance that could happen where it doesn't necessarily help you that you had a house full of people, or maybe your spouse was gone at the time. You're still going to take showers. I mean, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? Bring someone into the shower with you to make sure that they're watching? It's unrealistic. Most of us take most of our showers alone, so we're all running the risk that we could fall and that maybe no one knows. So what are you going to do? Well, this is a very random thing to fear, but you're going to do your best in the situation, and I certainly hope that never happens to anyone. And I've fallen in the shower before while I was alone, and I've thought to myself, oh my God, I fell and I was alone. But even if a person was there and you really were injured, there's only so much they can do. And sometimes it's the same thing that you would do in the situation, which is to call 911 and get help. So let's not over glamorize the idea of having other people around like it is the only way that we could stay safe. The reality is, sure, there are benefits to having folks around for sure. But if you just focus on those benefits, you're going to miss out on the benefits of seeking solitude and embracing a period of time in your life where you're not enmeshed in a codependent relationship. So we should aspire to be a sigma female, a sigma male. A sigma male is not the same as the alpha male. A sigma male is on the outside of the group. The sigma female is on the outside of the group. What makes them unique is the sigma is an independent thinker. They're not influenced by the trends. They don't follow the trends. They don't get caught up in social dynamics. That's why they're not considered the alpha or the beta or anything, because they don't care about social dynamics. They have their charisma. They're lovable. They're likable. They're highly intelligent. But they focus on their goals. They focus on their purpose. When they're around, people love them. People like being around a sigma. But they're also mysterious because they're not caught up in the fear of missing out. So aspire to be a sigma. Someone that can be alone sometimes, because it is good to be alone sometimes. So hopefully you've got some good notes here on how we can change our beliefs, our bias, and our behaviors in order to embrace this idea of solitude instead of rejecting mentally the idea of being alone. As far as the beliefs go, we need to change the way that we look at being alone from being a bad thing to being a good thing at times. It can be good to be alone. As far as our bias, we need to change our angle of looking at things and how we judge our situations. So if you're coming home, how do you judge that situation when there's no one in the house? Do you say, oh, I'm a loser because there's nobody in my house? Or do you say, great, this is an opportunity for me to pursue the things that are truly important to me, rather than having to worry about politeness and everyone else? And then as far as your behavior, you need to learn to seek solitude. Your behavior needs to change from seeking companionship and, oh, where's everyone else? What are they doing right now? To seeking solitude. Hey, you guys go ahead. I think I'm going to take a day for myself. You want to be the type of person that seeks solitude. So can you think of benefits to being alone? Well, here's some for your notes. When you're alone, you can self-reflect. It provides opportunity for introspection. It allows you to understand yourself better and identify your strengths and weaknesses. When you're alone, you can recharge and rejuvenate. Solitude helps you to recharge and rejuvenate the body, the mind, the soul. It gives you a chance to rest and de-stress and to restore your energy levels. It promotes overall well-being. When you're alone, you can increase your productivity. You can get into a distraction-free environment and focus effectively on your tasks and your goals. Without interruptions, you can enhance your productivity and accomplish things more efficiently when you're by yourself. You can have enhanced creativity when you're alone. You can have enhanced personal growth when you're alone. You can pursue your interests, your hobbies, your passions. You can have self-exploration. You can learn new skills and practice your new skills. You can spend 10,000 hours getting really, really good at something that you're passionate about when you're alone. You can reduce your own stress when you're alone. Have a reprieve from the demands and the stressors of social interactions, and just relax and unwind and engage in activities that bring you peace and joy. You can have greater autonomy as a single person, make more decisions for yourself, live according to your own rules and priorities and protocols. Contrary to popular beliefs, when you're a single person, you actually have stronger social connections, because people who are married or in relationships tend to isolate more and more away from their friends over time. So enjoy the stronger social connections that research says that single people have. You can have self-discovery, self-awareness when you're alone. You can have greater flexibility and spontaneity. You can take trips just because there's a good deal on tickets. You can focus on your goals, both personal and professional. You can meditate and pray, pursue spirituality. You can get closer to God. You can have enhanced well-being and happiness. Research suggests that singles can experience the same levels of happiness that persons have in relationships. It's the same. It's not greater or less. You can be happy in a relationship and outside of a relationship. So let's change our beliefs and our bias. Let's change our behavior, and let's embrace solitude so that we can be complete.